So he set me up nicely. The talk is called, I'll do that. Yeah, the sociology, not the technology. And this doesn't work. So he set me up perfectly. I just want a show of hands. How many of the people use HR tech or recruitment tech in their companies now? Right. How many really love it? Not you, Felix. Bill does. None of you universally love it, yet it's a part of our lives, right? Quick sort of joke, right? How many HR tech salesmen does it take to change a light bulb? None. It's a software problem. Okay. Catch up. So, this slide takes me back. So this is research by Panorama Consultant. There's equal research by Gartner that say something like 75% of all ERP or tech implementations overrun on cost, don't deliver to the original project plan, overrun on time, don't deliver customer satisfaction, and, right? So that's just a pictorial, realization of what we all feel in the room. I've worked, as Stephen kindly said, in recruitment and HR for more than 20 years, been the recipient of implementations, delivered implementations of ATSs, and sort of received them as I've been going into a company. About 8 years ago, I attended an HR conference where a woman bravely, I think, got up on a stage and told a great story about a FTSE 250 company that will be nameless that went into an ERP implementation, HRE implementation. She catalogued beautifully a disaster, a car crash. Now, why anyone would stand up in a conference and do that, I don't know, really brave, but cool, because a big learning. So she talked about, stakeholders not agreeing, disputing, choosing the wrong vendor, getting the process maps wrong, you name it, it was a car crash. And she told it in 45 minutes. I think every member of the audience was cringing with a little bit of self-knowledge that this happened. What we learned from that was the vendor walked away with £2 million in the bank, no consequence. The company went backwards because they didn't deliver any tech or any kind of improvement, and there was cultural stasis as well. So they were frightened to move forward with any other type of implementation because of all the disaster that was. And I thought this was kind of wow, so I'd just come off the back of a tech implementation that went mildly okay in the company I was working in. Fast forward 2 years, and I walk into a company, again, it will be nameless. They had just delivered a successful, in inverted commas, ATS implementation according to the project manager, who wasn't in HR or recruitment, and the vendor. I'm the new head of recruitment. Quite naively, I say to the team, okay, give me some reports on the process and cost per hire and all the good stuff that you would think that system might humbly deliver. Uniformly, the recruiters said, oh, no, we don't use the system, we use our own spreadsheets. Who knew, eh? Right? Now, which kind of like, well, this is just kind of caught me by surprise, right? So it's that, right? It's the screen. It's like, well, what's going on? Who spent the money to create double the workload for the recruiters and no outcome for the business? And what was the consequence? Well, nothing. No one seemed to care. So this kind of got me thinking. And I really, started to look into this. And in that particular organization, no one had really engaged at that point the main stakeholder, the HRD. They just said, get on with the tech implementation. There was no expectation of an outcome, whether that be reporting or better process or better candidate journey or better hiring experience, whoever had that on their list to do. And it was bewildering. And the recruiters were like, well, who knew, right? The owner of the software company, actually now a good friend of mine, was like, well, we were told this went really well. So it's got me thinking, this is a very busy slide, but there was an experiment in the 1950s, an animal behaviorist put 5 monkeys in a cage and put some bananas on top of the stool and a tools. So monkeys are good at using tools, and gave them a ladder. The first monkey realized that when they got hungry, they could use the ladder to climb and reach the bananas. As the monkey attained the peak, he was sprayed with a shot of cold water. Each other monkey, each tried this every time they were, by the time the third monkey had tried this, the other 2 monkeys in the cage were beating them up to stop them doing it, knowing that a shot of cold water was going to come. Eventually, over time, the scientists replaced 1 monkey at a time. The new monkey would go in, climb the ladder, same thing would happen, either get beaten up by the monkeys or a spray of cold water. And then finally, when all the monkeys were replaced, none of them tried to climb the ladder. So that represents cultural behavior, right? It's about cultural change and about why we do things, and almost not knowing why. And this got me thinking about tech, okay? So we need to think about the people in the organization and the organizational levers to pull before we overlay tech into that kind of mayhem and maelstrom. And hierarchy isn't necessarily a definition of how to make things tick in an organization or how to get change moving. It's a cultural and organizational problem before a tech problem. Now, interestingly, there was a lady called Hesselbein. She said, culture doesn't change on its just because we desire it to. It's because it's a sum of all the things people are doing in the organization at any one time. So you need levers to pull, you need a reason and communication to help get to that change. So if you think about the vendors, the stakeholders, and users in an organization, we need to start to engage them. So it's basic stuff, but initially is understand. So my tips would be understand what outcome you actually want from the tech, because the tech won't solve the world on its own, the people will, right? So, and even if it is as basic as better data or better reporting, make sure that is in the scope. Don't expect the tech to solve the overarching problem that you have. Secondly, with vendors, vendors are great at selling the dream, right? They think a bit of magic from Silicon Valley will rub off and that will enlighten the world. So they employ incredibly good salesmen, slick salesmen, and then they come into your organization and the sales process might be 6, 9, 12 months. You've built up a great relationship, and then at the point of which you sign that contract, the salesman walks away and gives you an implementation and allegedly change team. I would question the change bit. Many of these people have never worked in a corporate bigger than the organization they're in, that are often small, and understand the pain of change or what needs to change and how to help the client do it. On the flip side, clients, right? Choose the vendor wisely. It's not just about price or the best tech. Often the tech companies will sell you a great product that's full of great shiny new toys, but it's a bit like buying a house with a kind of double garage in the middle of a city centre when you don't own a car. Might not necessarily need that tech for the purposes you've got, just because the salesman wants to sell it to you. And equally think about, especially if it's HR or recruitment tech, this is not a 1 year, one-time deal that you can change next year or next month. Okay, this is like a marriage. Okay, this could be 5 to 10 years. Some marriages hopefully longer, right? Speaking from experience. But hopefully that relationship will last the test of time, and you get, marginal benefit the longer you are with that partner. So you have to accept that you choose that vendor on values, on their fit with your culture, and future-proofing you throughout the years, rather than having to sort of think about it in 2 to 3 years' time. So the initial product might not be exactly right, but choose them for the value they can bring to the organization. And then, we do talk badly about vendors, and it's unfair. As a client, when you've chosen that vendor with the rigor you might think about, is actually an accept, challenge, and debate with them. We don't have all the answers. Don't treat them as with a stick to beat them with every time they might get something wrong, or they hold up a mirror and say, actually, you need to do this differently, because you know what, there is a chance they might be right. Okay, and that relationship needs to last the test of time to get the value out of your system or product. I'll give an example. When I was working for Carillion, I do apologize, it was my fault. I went in there. We had a tech system which was a major, global tech system. I asked the recruiters what they thought of the tech system. Each and every one of them said, "Oh, it's rubbish. It doesn't work." And I said, "Okay, let's invite the vendor in, and we'll ask them if these things are on the platform." 5 out of 6 of them, the vendor said, "Yes, it does this, but you've never asked us to do it. Yes, it does this. You've never turned it on. Yes, it does this, but we just need to do this." didn't cost any more money. Just no one had ever had invested in the relationship. They just thought the tech would solve the problem. And if I look at the changing landscape with any tech, it's still the people that need to operate it and get the value out of it. And the best way to do that is involve the users and manage their expectation, okay? There is always pain with any change in any tech change, right? Your users, your recruiters, your operators, whoever they are, will know what may be coming down the line, and it's better to, whether that's a job loss or job change, it's better to engage them up front and be honest with them than wait until the end when you may get terrorists in your organization sabotaging the final outcome. And then you can have a grown-up, I think Kevin summed it up earlier with the transactional analysis. It's an adult-to-adult relationship when you're having that dialogue. Finally is celebrate the successes, okay, in the milestones. So celebrate the fact that as each one goes by, that you can report better or you can do something quicker or benefit a hiring manager, whoever it is, because these things get lost in the ether and we forget them and then we complain about the system. So really, what problem are you trying to solve, okay? Be clear about the scope, what's in and what is specifically out. Communicate what you cannot solve. Vendors, please invest in change management and clients over-invest in the training on the product or the new ways of working, okay? Many times vendors will put in a line for training and clients or procurement will take that out as the implementation gets near because there's a cost saving. That investment will help you save money down the track. Involve all the stakeholders. This is kind of kids stuff, but be clear about the change with your people, losses, changes, and be clear about won't be fixed. And of course, communicate with your stakeholders. Okay, internally in HR or recruitment or any specialist function, we are the specialists and we do know our stuff. But if I was a bank, we are a bank, we wouldn't change our digital app without going out to some customer survey. It may not actually change anything down the line, but we might get a surprise when we get a different screen or a different phone number or whatever. And that's really important to get those stakeholders on board who can ultimately damage your implementation and your implementation and success. And finally, as the implementation date comes near, that's not the end of the journey, right? It's about leadership. So the change is not embedded in 16 or 18 weeks when the vendor says that's your implementation period and it's over. Absolutely not. As leaders, we need to keep, remember that quote about change being embedded. Cultural change, your organization takes 2 to 3 years to actually embed. And as a leader, we need to embed that change. Otherwise, you won't get the value. So finally, Boris, right? Because there's two things why that slide's important. It's all about the leadership, not the leadership he's thinking about. Maybe not now. And with any tech implementation, don't chase unicorns. Thank you.